Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2, Diane Mason. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of Kingswood College from Box Hill, Victoria. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Frederick Alfred Weiss. Frederick Weiss was born on the 16th of October 1893 in Anna Bay, New South Wales. Known as Fred, he was the eldest son of 9 children, born to school headmaster Walter Weiss and his wife Amy Selina. Fred received his education at Glendonbrook Public School and later went on to study at Hereford House Training College for Teachers. He was then posted to the small town of West Wyalong, where he worked as an assistant teacher at Barmedden Public School. Fred Weiss enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 25th of July 1915. He was assigned to reinforcements of the 4th Battalion and began a short period of training in Australia. Before leaving for the front, he was farewelled at a surprise party in his hometown and given a sheepskin vest, a pocket wallet, and some handkerchiefs. He embarked for active service from Sydney in October on board troop ship Port Lincoln. Private Weiss arrived in Egypt and continued training with his unit. In February 1916, he was transferred to newly formed 53rd Battalion during a period of expansion in the AIF. His new battalion was composed of new recruits and veterans from recently abandoned Gallipoli campaign. He embarked for the Western Front the following month and after a week-long voyage arrived at the French port city of Marseille. His unit was then sent north to the Somme Valley, which had been the site of bitter fighting since 1914. The 53rd Battalion was later posted near the village of Armentières in an area of the front known as the Nursery Sector. Here recruits were introduced to life in the front lines in a comparatively quiet section of the trenches. Weiss entered the front lines on the 10th of July and took part in his first major battle 9 days later near the village of Fromelles. The battle was intended as a feint to prevent German reserves from moving south to take part in the Battle of Somme. Ordered to attack strongly fortified enemy positions near the Albers Ridge, the British advance was preceded by a 7-hour bombardment designed to destroy the German front line and allow the troops to take their objectives largely unopposed. When the battle began in broad daylight, advancing units quickly realised that the artillery had been almost useless. It had also served to warn the enemy of an impending attack. As they jumped the parapet, troops were cut down in waves by murderous machine gun and artillery fire from German troops who had taken cover during the bombardment. Though some men made it to their objective, they were quickly forced to withdraw and were again caught under heavy fire during their retreat. By the time the battle was called off, the 5th Division had suffered over 5,000 casualties in an attack which had been remembered as the worst 24 hours in Australia's entire history. Among these casualties was Private Fred Weiss, one of thousands of men who were missing in action after the carnage of Fromelles. Much to the anxiety of his family, Fred remained listed as missing for more than a year. A court inquiry was held in September 1917 to determine his fate. One of his comrades told the Red Cross of the last time he saw Private Weiss. "I saw Weiss shot in the stomach, dropping a few yards from the parapet of our trench on the outer edge of our wire. Enemy's high explosive shells were heavy and he was probably buried or blown to atoms. In the absence of further news from him, Private Fred Weiss was declared to have been killed in action on the 19th of July, 1916. His body was never recovered from the battlefield, and today is commemorated on the VC Corner Memorial near Fromelles. His parents later posted a memorial notice to Fred in the Gosford Times newspaper, which read, "Not death, but immortality." Fred Weiss was 24 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frederick Alfred Weiss, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. In the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.